Our story begins in Pangaea. I think we can skip ahead a little bit. Our growing Roman Republic is about to assert its dominance in the peninsula. Let's watch as they duke it out with the Greeks. What a formidable fight! After hundreds of years, a string of barbarian conquests would make it seem like the Italian peninsula would never be unified again. Ring-a-ding-ding, it's the 1790s and a man by the name of Napoleon is in charge of France. Smaller. There we go. Napoleon decided Europe would look better en français. I'm king of Italy now, he says to the Italians, who kinda like him. Then he conquers the rest of Europe but goes too far and the other Europeans team up to beat him down. The wars are over, and by the end of it, Napoleon controls all of this. But also this, because he's king there too. What do we do with this peninsula? Europe asks. I don't know. Return it to the previous owners, said Austria. And so they returned it, but Austria took a piece of it. Please welcome Papal States, Sardinia, the two Sicilies, a bunch of duchies, and Lombardy Venetia, aka Austria's puppet. Oh, and don't forget San Marino. Then a bunch of Italians decided to team up and form the Carbonari? To promote Italian unification by ways of revolt and stuff. Oh no, the Italian government say. Whatever shall we do? And so they become secret. Now it's the 1820s, and Italians start using art to advance unification ideals. They call it the Renaissance. Wait, no, that already happened. Let's call it the Risorgimento instead, they said, even though it totally means the same thing. Then they argue about how to make Italy. We should make a confederation with the Pope at the helm, said a totally not biased priest. We should make a confederation with Sardinia at the helm, said a totally not biased Sardinian. Guys, what if we just made a republic encompassing the whole peninsula, said Giuseppe Mazzini, who was promptly ignored for such crazy ideas. Meanwhile, another revolution in France. Classic France. This time they put this guy on the throne, who promises the Carbonari to intervene if Austria tries to stop further revolts. Then a revolt happens here, and the Pope stops it pretty quickly with the help of Austria. Austrian Chancellor Metternich looks King Luis Felipe dead in the eye and dares him to do something about it. No merci, he replies, and with that, the hopes of a French-backed unification seem to die right there. Remember the Carbonari? A man by the name of Giuseppe Garibaldi has become a prominent member. In 1834, he orchestrated an uprising in Sardinia that went about as well as all the previous ones. Then they sentenced him to death and placed him in a prison he couldn't escape. Can't catch me, he said as he escaped prison and ran all the way to South America where he was trained in guerrilla warfare. In the meantime, a Sardinian newspaper owner gives a rousing speech. Nationalism has become general, it grows daily, and has already grown strong enough to keep all parts of Italy united despite the differences that distinguish them. Man, this guy sounds like he's going places. Back to the action. The smaller duchies in northern Italy then decide they hated being small. Let us in, they told the bigger duchies in Sardinia. But that's nothing compared to what's going on in Lombardy Venetia. We hate this, said the Lombard Venetians, referring to the Austrians, and so they stopped paying taxes. But that's nothing compared to what's going on in two Sicilies. I hate this, said Ruggiero Settimo, referring to the Bourbon dynasty in power in Naples, so he declared the Kingdom of Sicily. But that's nothing compared to what's going on in France. He hates this, said the French, referring to Louis Philippe, and so they overthrew him and declared another French republic. By now, the Lombard Venetians were getting angsty and started rebelling against their Austrian parents. Venice and Milan are overrun with anti-Austrian Italians, which is practically everyone, and a scuffle starts. 5 days of hardcore fighting in Milan pushes the Austrians out, and King Charles Albert of Sardinia begins eyeing the situation as his appetite for more land grows. The moment to strike is now, says he as Sardinia declares war on Austria. Sure, says the two Sicilies and the Pope, who promptly join the war. Nah, says the two Sicilies and the Pope days later when they realize they have other problems. And so Sardinia is left to face Austria alone, with just the duchies to give assistance. Charles Albert fights and wins a little. Then he fights again and wins a little more. Man, we're actually doing pretty well, he says before being destroyed at the Battle of Custoza, when he signs the armistice giving Austrians control of Milan again. But not Venice, says a shaky old-voiced man who declares a republic there. Meanwhile in Rome, the Pope runs away after his minister is assassinated. Suddenly, Giuseppe Garibaldi is drawn to Rome like Mazzini is drawn to a republic. Coincidentally, actually, they both show up there. We could declare a republic, they say, and then declare a republic. Finally, Mazzini's paradise was made, a free Rome that was under a brand new republic. It's been like a year. Are the men trained yet? Asked Charles Albert. Yeah, probably, says an exiled Polish general paid to retrain the Sardinian troops. And then Charles Albert breaks all the armistice and loses all of his troops at Novara. Okay, well son, I bet you can do a better job, Charles Albert says to his son Victor Emmanuel II after quickly abdicating and running away. Meanwhile, back in Rome, what is going on here, says the Catholic French Republic while looking at Rome. And so they send an army to Rome. Okay, we give up, say the Giuseppes before throwing themselves into exile. Anyway, I bet the Kingdom of Sicily has been doing great. Oh, wait. No, it's gone. Well, I guess it's over now. You're my Prime Minister now, says Victor Emmanuel II to his friend Camillo, Paolo, Filippo, Giulio, Benzo, Count of Cavour, Isabella, and Larry. Knows Cavour for short. What an interesting choice, the Carbonari says as they read Cavour's pro-unification paper that he makes.
Meanwhile, in France, the French get sick of the French Republic and name Napoleon III the new French Emperor. It's 1855, and the French, British, and Turks are fighting the Russians for no reason. Why are you fighting the Russians? asks Cavour. I don't know, probably for no reason, replies the British as they throw men needless into a slaughter called the Crimean War. Mind if I join in? asks Cavour as he sends Sardinians needless into a slaughter called the Crimean War. You're pretty cool, say the British and French, who ally Sardinia and let Cavour sit in at the peace treaty and feel important. Back in France, some more important stuff has happened. Breaking news. Emperor Napoleon III is almost killed by a group of Carbonari from Italy who launched 3 bombs at him. When asked why they did it, they replied, because he's ignoring us. I better stop ignoring them, says Napoleon III as he schedules a secret meeting with Cavour. I'm definitely going to Switzerland, says Cavour to everyone asking where he's going. Then he accidentally overshoots Switzerland and ends up in France, where he coincidentally has a meeting planned with Napoleon III. Here's what we're doing, they said. France will join Sardinia if Austria declares war on them. Check. Italy should be split into 3 kingdoms without Austrian influence. Check. Victor Emmanuel II's 15-year-old daughter should marry Napoleon III's cousin to symbolize all of this. Check. So Napoleon III and Victor Emmanuel II sign a deal that includes everything from that meeting except for the splitting up Italy into 3 kingdoms part. Oh, and also Napoleon III wants the region of Savoy and the city of Nice as reparation if the plan of attacking Austria succeeds. Okay, I guess, says Victor Emmanuel II as guards have to restrain Garibaldi, a Nice native. Garibaldi cools off after being allowed a force of volunteers he could command in the mountainous regions called the Hunters of the Alps. Oh yeah, then that wedding happens. Now how am I going to provoke Austria into attacking us? Ponders Cavour weeks before Austria issues an ultimatum ordering the Sardinian military to stand down because of their sudden increased presence on the Lombard-Venetian border. Oh, you and your ultimatums, Cavour says to Austria, but not really, because that's an in-joke for us future people. Don't tell Cavour about the Great War yet. Anyway, after being ignored, Austria declares war on Sardinia, who is quickly joined by France and those friendly duchies. Let us through, orders the Austrian army to the Sardinian peasants as they try to march through their land, but they ignore them and flood their rice fields so no one can move anywhere. Then Napoleon III arrives on the front line himself and commands his army in a battle that decimates an Austrian force 3 times his size. Wait, no, 3 times his army's size. Meanwhile, Garibaldi is shredding it in the Alps. By now, Napoleon III starts to worry about things at home, so he signs a deal without consulting Sardinians that gives them control of Milan, but sees the rest of Lombardy back to the previous regional leaders. Oh, and Austria keeps Venice. This sucks, says Cavour, who resigns in anger, but the French don't enforce the regional leaders' part anyway, and it doesn't happen as the land becomes a de facto part of Sardinia. Meanwhile, after the slightly pro-Austrian rulers disappeared, the governments of the duchies had to team up, along with a few rebellious northern papal provinces, to form the United Provinces of the United Provinces of Central Italy. A month later, Cavour returns to the office pretending the whole thing with Napoleon III didn't happen. Hey, what if we just joined Sardinia, said the new United Provinces, and they voted. Yes, everyone said loudly, and so Sardinia grew ever more. Ahem, coughs Napoleon III. What about that stuff you promised? Oh yeah, says Victor Emmanuel II, and so Savoy and Nice are promptly annexed by France after a vote that Garibaldi proclaims rigged. I've hatched a plan, says Cavour before he convinces Garibaldi to relieve his anger about the Nice situation by attacking the 2 Sicilies. What a great idea, says Garibaldi, who sets sail for Sicily with 1,000 men wearing stylish red uniforms. By the time Garibaldi reaches Sicily, British ships have already scared the Bourbon fleet away after joining the new conflict because of economic interest. I'm the dictator of Sicily now, says Garibaldi after the population decrees that anything not Bourbon is fine by them. Let's rush Palermo, says Garibaldi as he leads his men to besiege the capital of the island. A telegram from Cavour. Garibaldi, can you cool down and take it a bit slower? I'm beginning to think you might actually become a dictator. Anyways, please give us, the government, control of Sicily. Thanks. Nah, not yet, Garibaldi replies and continues his expedition. A telegram from Cavour. Garibaldi, I know you've conquered all of Sicily at this point, but can you please hold on and not cross over to the mainland yet? Then Garibaldi crosses the mainland and captures Naples, the capital of two Sicilies, without resistance as King Francis runs away to hide in a fort. Back home, Cavour issues an ultimatum ordering papal forces to stand down so the Sardinian army could go up Garibaldi. No, says Pope Pius IX, and so Sardinian troops move into papal territory. A telegram from Cavour. Napoleon III, I know you're busy and all, but can you be pretty please invade the Pope without your intervention even though you're Catholic? Sure, just don't touch Rome. And so the Kingdom of Sardinia annexed everything to papal states except the region around Rome. As Sardinian troops joined Garibaldi in the capture of King Francis II's fortress, a vote is held in the two Sicilies. Do you guys want to join? Yes, people reply before the question is even asked. Oh, I'll give you Sicily now, so don't worry, says Garibaldi. And with that, the Kingdom of two Sicilies is annexed by Sardinia.
Hey guys, I think we conquered most of Italy now, says Victor Emmanuel II to a group of ministers he assembled that he now called the Italian Parliament. What if you all just, I don't know, called me King of Italy or something? And a month later, the Italian Parliament declares the Kingdom of Italy with King Victor Emmanuel II of Italy as its monarch. Oh, and by the way, decrees the Parliament of Italy, Rome is the capital now, even though the Pope still owns it. By now, everything is going fairly well with the new Italian. Hear ye, Count Cavour has died. His last words were, "Italy is made, all is safe." And then Mazzini and a bunch of other dudes got angry because they all disagreed. What about the Republic thing? Said Mazzini as he formed a militia in an attempt to draw support for the issue. Who cares about that when we don't own Rome or Venice still? Says the rest of Italy that start referring to Italian lands owned by other countries as the irredente or unredeemed. I can get behind that plan, says Garibaldi as he readies a force in Sicily to take Rome. Wait, no, stop, what if you anger the French who still have troops there and whatever, says Victor Emmanuel II. Then Garibaldi starts moving to the strait between Sicily and the mainland with his troops. Actually stop, says Victor Emmanuel II as he positions troops to block their passage to the mainland. Then Garibaldi moves away from the strait and just takes another route. Will you stop now? Victor Emmanuel asks as Italian forces meet Garibaldi soldiers in a small scuffle. Okay, sure, Garibaldi says after being shot in the foot. A telegram from Victor Emmanuel II. Napoleon III, I know you're busy and all, but can you pretty please remove your army from Rome and stop protecting the Pope? Not sure why you would want that, but sure, give me a few years, replies Napoleon III. It's 1866. And wars are brewing in Central Europe again, this time over who has the most power in Germany, Austria or Prussia. We do, says Otto von Bismarck, Chancellor of Prussia, who promptly joins an alliance with the Italians. Then the war breaks out, and Victor Emmanuel II is so close to Venice he can taste it. But this one Austrian general is really good, and what if the Italian army isn't good enough? Oh no. The Italian army was just decimated by the Austrians. Never fear, says the Prussians as they defeat Austrians in major battles and draw their resources away from Italy. Wait, this is getting too crazy, Napoleon III says as he starts to try to calm everyone down. Quick guys, grab Venice and blockade them with our ships, says Victor Emmanuel II, eager to get bargaining chips for the end of the war. But then the fighting between Prussia and Austria dies down. Then it dies down some more. Okay, don't start sending your troops back, we give, say the Italians before signing an armistice. Weeks later, the Peace of Prague is agreed to between Austria and Prussia, mediated by Napoleon III. Give Venice to Italy, he orders the Austrians. No, they're bad at fighting, reply the same Austrians who lost the war they're at a peace conference for right now. Okay, then just give it to me. And so the war ended with Venice being handed over to France. Hey guys, Napoleon III asked Venice. You want to participate in this totally legitimate vote where you decide if you want to join Italy? And everyone totally legitimately voted so hard that only 69 of 642,000 ballots disagreed with the annexation. And so, Venice was annexed by Italy. Years later, Napoleon III decides Prussia has expanded enough and declares war, finally pulling the French out of Rome. Months later, he's overthrown and another French Republic is created. Anyway, with the distracted rest of Europe, Victor Emmanuel II decides it's time to send the Pope a telegram. Pope Pius IX, I know you're busy and all, But what do you think about the Italian troops filling that vacuum the French soldiers left so we can definitely protect you and not take Rome? No, the Pope replies. Then Italians enter Rome and take it as the Pope flees. Hey, wait, you can stay ruler of your little Vatican area. No, the Pope replies and calls himself a prisoner even though he was never captured. The capital of Italy is once again declared Rome for the first time since the ancient Roman Republic ruled the peninsula from the same spot in the BCEs. The King of Italy delivers a speech for the occasion, closing with the famous line, "A brilliant future opens before us. It remains for us to respond to the blessings of Providence by showing ourselves worthy of bearing among the nations the glorious names of Italy and Rome." Fast forward. It's 1915. Italian irredentists are asking the same question you, the viewer, are wondering. What about those other regions that nationalists still consider part of Italy, like Friuli and Dalmatia and all that? Well, it being 1950 means great wars are in vogue, and the Triple Entente is looking for buddies. Buongiorno, Italy, says Britain. Want to join up and defeat those Germans and Austrians like the good old days? Nah, says King Victor Emmanuel III of Italy, grandson of Victor Emmanuel II. What if we threw in a guarantee that you could get those other pieces of land you still want? Britain asks. Okay, sure. Then the Italians join the Great War. 4 years later, it's the end of the Great War. Oops, looks like Italy wasted a lot of troops on a little bit of land that the irredentists stopped caring about soon after there was such a loss of life. Oh, and they didn't even get all of it. The Italian population was now ultra-nationalistic yet suspicious of their own government after such a flop. Mamma mia, what an opportunity, says young political activist Benito Mussolini. And the rest is history. Overall, the Italian unification was a process that displayed the good and bad of conflict and compromise. Throughout the entire history of Italy, conflict was key to the growth of the country, and compromise unified its people through peace treaties, referendums, and several other processes. Wars and votes equally took place in the construction of Italy, and the entire nation's existence is a prime example of what can potentially arise from the effects of both conflict and compromise through history.